to 26, sorry. This is to consider the report of the external auditors, which we have attached. May I, at this juncture, bring in Maziers, please? Not quite sure who is leading on this. Is it Rob to open up? Or Cameron?
It's probably me, Chair. It's Cameron here. Sorry, my camera's not working, which is probably a good thing for everybody, really.
Okay, welcome, Cameron.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just very quickly touch on the 2015-16 accounts. So clearly the Council approved the recommendation that we made in its meeting in July. The deadline for implementing the recommendation has passed without it being implemented in practical terms. Yesterday, Chair, I think you remember from the pre-meeting and from some brief correspondence yesterday evening that we have issued a revised statutory recommendation which has been discussed with officers and we believe agreed. We understand that will be considered by full council on Monday coming. The key difference between the previous recommendation and the new one is it very explicitly requires the council to commence the legal proceedings required by the 31st of December. I wasn't going to say much more than that, Chair. You're aware that we have issued a letter to the council setting out our rationale for doing so. Wasn't proposing to go through that with you today. But happy to take any specific question members have got in relation to 2015-16 and the objection process.
Thank you very much for that, Cameron. I do have our monitoring officer and head of legal, Lisa Dixon, with her hand up. And just before I bring Lisa in, just to explain the awareness of the letter yesterday, you submitted one to our senior officers addressed to the council, which is quite right. But of course, they were all tied up in a rather long scrutiny meeting yesterday and did not pick it up off the emails till nearly 5 o'clock, shall we say. I had conversations last night with two of our directors, and from that point onwards, I'll hand to Lisa to explain how we, as an authority now, are going to treat the report letter that you submitted yesterday. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to really update members with this. Obviously, we've been in discussions with Mazars about how we deal with this. There was some, I think it's probably fair to say there was a little bit of disagreement over the summer on how the recommendation could best be implemented. However, as part of those recommendations, we've agreed a way forward that satisfies both parties, as Cameron has alluded to, but that has required an extension of time to the 31st of December. We did get a draft recommendation, thanks to Mazars last week, which enabled me to place a notice, the requisite notice, under the Local Accountability and Audit Act 2014 to serve the requisite notice so that the fresh recommendation can be considered at full council on Monday. We didn't have the report behind that. We didn't have a confirmation of the final form of that until yesterday afternoon when that report was issued in final form. We were going to take this opportunity to say that we'll be, as officers, we would be circulating that draft report. And as you said, apologies, members, we were all tied up yesterday afternoon, so we only really had a chance to review it this morning. So we will be circulating that to members, particularly of this audit committee, so that members can see that report. But again, I think I need to make it clear from the council's perspective that we have not had a chance to formally respond to that, and that as officers we do have some concerns and a couple of issues that we will need to address in response to that letter, because I think there's still a couple of points in there that we would need to clarify. So we will be preparing a more detailed response to that. I'm happy to circulate that to members in due course. So bearing that in mind, we will be circulating the report to members of the audit committee, but please asking members to bear in mind that we will also be circulating a response to that. Other than that, we are taking the recommendation to full council on Monday, and as Cameron pointed out, it's materially to extend the period of time to finally issue the court proceedings on this matter. We will also be seeking some additional costs, as there is a difference in the way that we were handling the preparation of the documentation as a consequence of changing the way in which we are issuing the court proceedings. So it will require further resource from the council. However, it is in everybody's best interest that we get this moved on and dealt with as quickly as possible. So we have brought in additional resources to put onto the court case so that we can move it as quickly as possible with a view to tidying it all up for the benefit of everyone and for the benefit of this council and also prior to LGR. So at the moment, our focus is on doing everything that we can to move this on as expediently and efficiently as possible, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. Before I bring Councillor Chance in, can I just ask that, obviously, yes, it's going to full council on Monday. We have the recommendation already. Members have seen that one, obviously, and a little bit of a light touch covering report to that. In regards to the receipt yesterday of this letter/report, does that have any material impact on the report to members rather than the recommendation? I do understand, and I will say publicly that that there has been some professional difference of opinion, shall we say, but you've worked through it together collectively. But there is a shared support from Mazurs and the Borough Council for the recommendation that sat with us on Monday. Am I also reasonable and right to say that the letter received from Mazurs is for all council laws, but in the first instance we see that? Just to belt and brace in regards to, shall we say, if there's anything that shouldn't be in the public domain because of our need to comply with legal compliance on certain sensitive matters.
So my understanding, when the report was issued to us yesterday, it was on the basis that it was for consideration by the Audit Committee. And like we said, quite happy to place it before the Audit Committee. We've just not had chance to formulate our response to it. And as I said, we do disagree with some of the points that are set out in that letter. I am more than happy to send it all to all members. You know, I see no reason to do that, but that is on the basis that as officers, we do need to respond to some of those points and clarify them, because we, you know, frankly, like we said, there's a professional disagreement on some of those points. We both have our opinions, but at the end of the day, I think it's not for us to be getting hung up on those professional differences, opinions. The key focus on this matter now has to be, after all this time and the 5 years, 6 years it's taken us to get to this position, moving it on as quickly as possible and getting a resolution that is in the best interests of the council, the future unitary council coming up, but also the residents of the borough. And that's what our focus and our key resource is now going to be put into. We need to move on.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarification for those who are watching this particular meeting, the report and the response that will be undertaken by officers within the council has no material bearing on the recommendation on Monday. Therefore, that still sits as submitted and supported by Mazurs and our officers. That's the key thing here, that we're going into chamber on Monday and we are looking at something that is as submitted and will not be varied unless there's challenge, of course, and amendments from the floor. But that aside, your professional bodies, Mazur and the authority, are in one as agreement to that recommendation. Quick yes or no from yourself, Lisa, and from Cameron, please, and then I'll bring David Chanson.
I think, yes, that's the position, isn't it, Cameron?
I would agree that, sorry, Chair, you won't be able to hear me. Sorry, I agree that we have reached agreement in the way forward, which is stated in the recommendation. But how we've got to the recommendation maybe is the professional disagreement in certain aspects.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Chance.
Yeah, I'm only seeking an assurance that any recommendation that is put before council on Monday does not seek to countermand the original recommendation of a resolution of council, and is purely to emphasise the time scale that you should be taking to implement it. I would hope that's the case, because you can't alter the recommendation of council, I believe, within 6 months.
So there's no change. What we have done over the summer, and I think this was part of the professional sort of disagreements that we were alluding to, was ensuring we've sought clarification on the extent of the original recommendation, which fits with the council resolution, if I can put it in that way. So effectively, the recommendation on Monday seeks to extend the timescale for us to get the proceedings issued in court by the 31st of December. But I think, Councillor Chance, you'll probably also be seeking that confirmation that we will be including what we think, what is estimated to be all of the Whitby Harbour land within that recommendation. And that is what we are seeking to do. And that is why we are putting some additional resource in, because our focus has been very much on the car parks previously. And now we are going through another piece of work of the evidential requirements in relation to some of the other land. So yes, Councillor Chance, it includes the extension to the 31st of December of this year to issue court proceedings, but the recommendation will be covering the whole of the Whitby, of what is, sorry, like we say, everyone says it's uncertain, but what, the declaration as to the extent of the whole of the Whitby land. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. That clarifies it insofar as, I mean, my concern is that we do not vary the recommendation to council that was accepted. And the other thing, of course, is that, I've forgotten what I was going to say there. I'm quite happy as long as the original recommendation accepted by council is complied with.
Chair, if I might, it's Cameron
Yes,
again
Cameron.
from Mazar. The original recommendation and indeed the revised recommendation, the second sentence, we feel is quite clear, and that states, that is to say, the council should take proceedings to seek a ruling on the land and property which comprises the statutory harbour undertaking. At no point in the recommendation have we referred to car parking, nor have we attempted to limit the extent of the land. The point of the recommendation is to clarify the extent of the land and property which comprises the statutory harbour undertaking. We feel that's quite clear and always has been.
Okay, thank you for that, Cameron. I'm sure that Councillor Chance will agree with that. I understand, of course, that the extension to time, Lisa, is obviously because there's quite a bit of front loading of evidence base when you do this way without elongating this particular section, because we have discussed it many times. But that is key to this. The time extent is because of the front loading of investigation and evidence.
Yeah, there is a significant amount of front loading to be done. Our original application was by way of judicial review, which required less evidence being pushed forward up front. So we are having to do more work prior to issuing proceedings than we would have done in the other way that we were handling the matter. Would say Cameron and I will shake hands on this, and we will have at some point over the disagreement over the recommendation. The important thing, and I will come back to it now, is we have resolved at those differences and we are moving on, because we need to move this on and we need to get it resolved. And like we said, we are putting additional resources in now to make sure that we can move this forward as quickly as possible. And I've got really nothing further to add to that. It's time to get it resolved.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you have anything further, David? Your hand's still up, or you happy with that one? And thank you, Cameron, for your comments on that one. Can we now go to the further bits of the report as well? Do you want to speak to this one, Rob, or is it Cameron continuing? Be Rob? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Chair. When I can manage to unmute. Can you hear me? Or can you hear me okay?
We can, yes, thank you.
Excellent. So we have actually commenced work on the 2021 audit, doing some of the initial planning work. As an aside, there is a national shortage of external auditors within local government, and I think there was a recent PSA report that quoted only 9% of external audits have been complete for local councils, due by the end of September, which is when the statutory deadline was moved to for this financial year. So that's a contextual point, but we are now commencing the work. Clearly, because of the legal challenge, we're not likely to be in a position to sign off until that is resolved. But we will endeavour to complete the work as quickly as we can. We did, as was mentioned in the initial response to the public question, yes, we did have initial discussions with the team on the MRP proposal. From our perspective, we're external auditors. We're not here to advise the council as such, but we were aware of what the council proposed, and it was subject to audit, which I think is what I mentioned at the previous meeting. So the work is ongoing. There's no matters to report to you at this point, and we will update you at the next audit committee relating to the 2021 audit. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Just one off me for clarification, really, and it's to do with the MRP. Obviously, we asked those questions so we could have confidence in our response as a committee. And I don't have the particular section in front of me, but I'm fairly confident that your response was that other authorities use this treatment, and therefore, to do it, that is reasonable to do so. And you did caveat by saying, but it is subject to audit.
Yeah, it's a complex area. It requires a whole host of calculations and a detailed review, and that is absolutely true. A number of councils have adopted that. The guidance changed, and that effectively has meant the outcome that we've got to changing guidance.
In regard, and I don't wish to sort of stretch this any longer than we need to, but the change in guidance from what to what in an easy language way.
Well, the guidance was updated to stop councils doing big retrospective adjustments and effectively not having any MRP in their accounts. And there were a number of councils that did this, which was not what the council proposed to do. But the change, and I can't remember the dates without looking back at the detailed regulations, it wasn't entirely clear. It's ambiguous. That's the problem. Okay. It's not black and white when you can read the guidance in different ways.
Okay. I mean, thank you for it's not clear and it's not black and white. I think that is actually helpful because that clearly steered external opinion above and beyond yourselves, taking yours into account as well, of course. And you have said that we did not propose to do away with MRP altogether, which is also helpful because that was the bit that was, shall we say, frowned upon and was illegal practice, and we were not going down that route. Just for confirmation on that one. Thank you. Anything from members to Rob on the other elements of the report? There's the list of national publications, as always, and from CIPFA itself and the capital strategy guidance, collaborations in public service, retained right to buy receipts, and some financial statistics for 21. National Audit Office, of course, is going through, and that's it. Anything from other members? Okay, happy to receive a note, Rob and Cameron. Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you for your candour in regards to our public questions and your opinions. Thank you. Can we now please move on to agenda item 5, which is the Internal Audit and Counter Fraud Progress Report, Quarter 2, 21-22, pages 27 to 46. We have Connor, Jonathan, and there is another lady in attendance, I believe. So to you, Connor, please.
Thank you, Chair. So as ever, this report is divided into two. So the first part I'll run the committee through is in relation to internal audit, and the second part's on counter fraud, which my colleagues Jonathan Dodsworth and Sarah Wallace will take you through after the fact. So essentially, it's your usual progress update. So the committee approved the 21-22 internal audit work programme at its 22nd of April meeting. And at that time, we presented the committee with what was a high-level summary of the work that we expected to undertake in the year. Actually, to some extent, we're quite proud to be able to present to you at this point in time our new flexible approach to work programme delivery and development. The reason we've moved to a more flexible approach is really to try and move at the pace of risk, and that's a pace that seems to be ever increasing in local authority. So we've sought the chance to really update and upgrade in some instances our procedures to buy that flexibility into our process. So just to go into a little bit more detail about that revised approach and what it means for how we'll present reports to you in future, because it is relevant to how the report has been presented to you today. So as I said, our new approach is designed really with that flexibility in mind. So instead of presenting you with a plan for the next 12 months, we'll now be presenting you with an indicative programme, which is a long list of potential priority areas based on an assessment of risk. That initial assessment of risk is undertaken in that period in the lead up to developing the plan, where we have the consultation with yourselves as a committee, and then when we present the annual work programme to you. Using that indicative programme will then determine audit work to be undertaken on an ongoing and rolling basis, on the simplified basis of do now, do next, and do later. So that's with work to be prioritised based on assessment of a number of factors, which may be in operation at a given time. So whether or not we provided any recent assurance, if there are any specific issues in relation to controls or operations at the council, if risks are changing, or where there may be pressures or scheduling requirements. Therefore, throughout the remainder of the year, you can expect to see the audit areas move between the three categories of do now, do next, and do later, based on their priority at the time of assessment, and the key being that risk assessment is now ongoing. So updates to the overall indicative programme and the current assessment of work to be undertaken in the year will be discussed with senior managers, as always, and presented as part of each internal audit progress report, of which this is one. So it'll enable the committee to understand what work is currently planned, and also to provide input on that work that we have planned, and to understand better, we feel, the priorities of work to be carried out in the future. I guess now to move on to the actual the content, the meat of the report itself in terms of delivery to date. That's set out in Appendix A, or page 35 of your packs. And by way of an overview here, work's still being undertaken remotely, and in an update to the report as presented, work has now actually commenced on 4 audits, with 2 IT audits being scoped presently. So the 4 audits that are ongoing are Dean Road Depot, corporate complaints, we've got GDPR compliance, and we've got payroll as well. We've also begun to plan some audits on debt management and income collection, SIP for financial management code compliance, the council's general ledger, project management and leisure and community services, which is focusing on the spa and the Whitby Pavilion. And that's with a view to commencing these audits in November and December. So the overall effect of ongoing and planned work on the programme, as well as our current assessment of priorities based on our risk assessment, is set out in Appendix B, and that's on pages 36 to 38 of your packs. So this really is designed to give committee a bit of a view of how the programme is shaping up at this stage in the year, and given the significant disruption over the last 18 months or so, we're generally satisfied with the level of progress that we've been making to date, but we're undoubtedly slightly behind where we would be in an ordinary year, and we'll need to ensure that the momentum that we've kind of picked up and gained over the last couple of months is maintained through the rest of the year, so that we can deliver an opinion that's fully formed and supported by a body of work that we can reasonably place reliance on. So we'll need to continue to work with senior managers and get the support of this council, as we have, as this committee, as we have done in our relationship with yourselves, just to make sure that that's possible to do ahead of the end of the year. And then finally, Appendix C details our usual update on follow-up work that we've undertaken in the year to date. Again, generally good progress has been made in completing actions that have arisen as a result of our work, and we've seen a particularly high implementation rate for last year's or 2020-21 actions, which has been really pleasing to see. As usual, we've also included any priority 1 and 2 actions that have been outstanding for more than 6 months in the table, which forms part of Appendix C. And at this point, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions you or the committee might well have. Chair, I believe you might be on mute.
Mute, Chair.
Still on mute, Andy.
I think he's trying.
Still on mute. Andy, would you like me to ask my question while you try and oh, you're off mute.
It's ready.
Okay. For you, David. Carry on, please. Thank you.
Just very quickly, a couple of questions. One relates to page 35. You said harbours income and debt management. I didn't hear you mention that. It says it's in progress. And I'm assuming that's harbours income in both harbours.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And the other question is Leisure and Community Services Scarborough Spa. Can I ask our Scarborough Spa, since we took the responsibility back in-house, can I ask if Scarborough Spa and Whitby Pavilion are being operated as separate cost centres now and not one cost centre?
Nick, perhaps you might be best to answer that.
I can come in, but
You can, Nick.
my understanding is they always have their own separate individual cost centres for Whitby Pavilion and Scarborough Spa. So that's my assumption, yes.
Okay. The reason I asked that, Nick, is I know that at one point with SIV that Whitby Pavilion was turning an operating profit, whereas Scarborough Spa wasn't. And I just want to make sure we don't start getting the monies mixed up.
No, Chairman, we will have our own individual cost centres for the Whitby Pavilion and Scarborough.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Chance? Okay, thank you. Anything further from your good self, Conor, on this particular section of this report?
Not